my hope is that after this message, you guys will have your heart on fire to go serve. So Matthew chapter 5 is where we are going to be. How many of y'all have siblings in here? Just raise your hands, okay? Pretty much all of y'all, incredible. Where are my only children at? Just give me a raise of hands. Good for you guys. Only a couple, okay. Love y'all. You guys won't get this, but it's okay. So, when you guys have siblings, right? My sister and I were like 20 months apart. And my sister and I would get into like arguments, as you do, and we get in trouble, and my parents would like get mad at us, right? And Annalise and I, since we're having a child, 6th graders, you guys didn't know that me and my wife are having a baby, so that's awesome. But we've been asking a bunch of people, like, what are the funnest punishments that you guys do with your kids? And like my wife's mom she taped her and her brother's hand together, and so they said to hold hands and sit on the couch. But when my sister and I would get in trouble, right, we would both get in trouble. My parents would correct us and punish us, and they would get mad at us. And then my sister would just be the sweetest, little goody two shoes, and be like, "I'm so sorry," right? And she would go, "I'm like, no, you just yelled at me and were screaming at me and clawed my face apart, and now you're just acting so sweet and so kind." And it was a total switch, from one thing from the other. Now, Jesus, in this message, in the Sermon on the Mount, right, he doesn't do a switch where he's arguing with somebody and then not arguing with someone, but he makes a switch that drastic, right? And again, the Sermon on the Mount, it's 3 chapters, but it's one continuous sermon by Jesus, right? It's taking us 13 weeks to go through it. It took Jesus probably 30 minutes, right? And so the way Jesus gets in to this, what we're going to start talking about, being the salt of the earth, being the light of the world, Jesus literally starts from verse 11 of the Beatitudes, right? That was what happened last week, was the Beatitudes. He said, "Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for they persecuted the prophets who were before you." And then he literally goes, probably doesn't even skip a breath, and he goes, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. You are a city on a hill." Jesus takes a total 180. Goes from blessed are you when people, essentially, my version, don't like you. When people judge you. When people don't like that you love Jesus. When they look at you differently because you love Jesus. Good. You're the salt of the earth. That's how Jesus gets into this message. It probably turns some people a different way. Right? Because again, they're expecting Jesus to say all these really nice and easy things. And he goes, "Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek." And then he says, "You are the salt of the earth." And again, just a total side note, right, y'all, people pleasing, because again, it's saying, blessed are you when essentially people don't like you for your faith, right? Which in reality, y'all, is going to happen, right? You guys know this. When you go to school and you say, "I am a Christian," there are people that don't like you. There are people that don't like that you're a Christian. Jesus says, again, we are going to be blessed when we are persecuted. It will happen often. It's a guarantee that people are going to persecute you for your faith. And people-pleasing is one of the things that happens from that. And we're going to get into people-pleasing in a sermon later in the year. But just to remind you, in Galatians chapter 2, Paul literally has to confront Peter because Peter was worrying about people-pleasing instead of honoring Jesus. And so again, Jesus literally goes from "blessed are you for being persecuted" to "you are the salt of the earth." And then what Jesus does is he gives attributes of a disciple. That's our title for tonight, attributes of a disciple. And I have 3 points for you guys, and through those 3 points, we are going to be looking at what the attributes of a disciple are, what a disciple is. Those 3 are going to be the salt of the earth. A disciple is the salt of the earth. They are the light of the world, and they shine bright. Our first point, salt of the earth. Let's look at verse 13 together of Matthew chapter 5. "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet." Notice how Jesus goes, "You are the salt of the earth." Jesus doesn't say maybe. He doesn't say you can be. He doesn't say you should be. No, he says you are the salt of the earth. It's something to notice. It's not something Jesus asks us to be. It's something he tells us that we are. He tells us we are the salt of the earth. And so we look at salt. What are the jobs of salt? I researched this. I didn't know this. In biblical times, when Jesus was talking, the job of salt, the main job it had, was basically what your refrigerator does now for all of your meat in your house. That's what the main job of salt was. It was to stop food from decaying. And so the way people would get salt, little history lesson for you guys, the way they would get salt is they would go over to the Dead Sea, right? And the reason the Dead Sea was called the Dead Sea is because it's extremely salty, and fish wouldn't be able to live in it because they can't live in that salty of water. So they would go over, take like a big old tree branch, and they would just put it in the water and just go out for the rest of their day. And they'd come back at the end of the day, and they'd grab the tree, and it was full of salts, right? It was saturated. And what they would do is they would break off a branch, and they would rub the branch over their meats, right? Like, let's say fish. They would rub the branch over the fish, and then the fish would be good. It would be preserved. It would be kept, right? It wouldn't decay. And so, again, they don't have, 9-foot stand-up freezers to put all your meat in. They had salts. That is what salt's job was. It was to stop decay. As believers, we have a job to stop the world from decaying. It's obvious that the world is decaying, right? We see that all the day, like the world is getting hotter or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what global warming is. I don't really care. But we see that the world is dying. We see that the world is getting worse, or it can get better, right? In my personal opinion, I think my generation and y'all's generation, so we can say our generation, is probably at a 50-50 point. They're 50-50 if they want to go for Jesus or if they want to run for the world. And once they make that decision, they're going to go with it the rest of their lives. I genuinely believe that you guys are at a 50-50 point. And so when we say that our job is to stop the world from decaying, when Jesus says we are the salt of the world, we can give people that edge to go over that 50 spot into Jesus, to start following and walking after Jesus. Here's the reality: when people choose the world, they start to decay. Their body starts to get worse. They start to lose interest. They start to essentially go down the path of going to hell, right? And again, we know hell is eternal punishment, is eternal separation from Jesus, and heaven is, again, eternal, like eternity with Jesus. And so when we are decaying, our job as salt of the earth is meant to stop people from decaying. We need to bring people to Jesus. We need to tell people about Jesus. We need to start serving and start reminding people of who Jesus is. The first job of salt is to stop decay. It is to keep stuff longer. The second job of salt is it adds flavor. I'm sure most of you guys know this, right? When you guys cook, salt is pretty much used in everything, right? And if you don't use salt when you cook your food, I'll pray for you. But you need to use salt in your food. And here's the reality, y'all. You can tell when somebody doesn't salt something. You can just know when something is unsalted. The same way that you can know when you're missing Jesus in your life. You know that something's wrong. You know that you shouldn't be doing something. And when you surround yourself with Jesus, you notice you need Jesus. When you start to surround yourself without Jesus and without people that follow Jesus, you start to notice and you start to drift away from Jesus. Now, my wife is an amazing cook for the most part. And I love to cook. I'm the chef. I love to cook in our house. It's not that she doesn't like to cook. It's just I love to cook. I grew up cooking my whole life. I'm Italian. That's just how it works. Now, when you guys make pasta, how many of y'all have made pasta before? Just like boiled pasta? Come on now. Buttered noodles, phenomenal, right? They're incredible. How many of y'all salt your pasta water before you start cooking it? Okay? More hands need to be up. I'm just going to tell y'all that right now. When my wife and I first got married, she's like, I'm going to make some pasta. I'm like, fire, let's go. You guys put your hands down now. It's okay. And I'm like, fire. And we started eating it, and I'm like, the salt is missing. She didn't salt the pasta water. Again, no fault to her at all, but she didn't salt the pasta water. Well, my whole life, I grew up putting salt in my pasta water because, again, y'all from Italians, that's how you're supposed to cook pasta. But she didn't do that when she was growing up. And the idea that I have here, what I'm trying to show you guys, is when you are around Jesus more and more, when you spend time in the Word, when you start sharing your faith with people, when you start serving, you're going to start knowing when Jesus isn't a part of things. And you're going to watch a movie and you're going to be like, I probably shouldn't watch that movie. I feel like Jesus wasn't involved in that. I feel like Jesus doesn't want me to do that. Or you listen to a song or you hang out with a certain friend group, you're going to start learning that I feel like Jesus isn't really involved in this. I need to get away from it. You're going to know right away when something is wrong. John chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus tells us that, I don't know if it's verse 10, but it's John chapter 10, and Jesus tells us that the sheep know the shepherd's voice. The sheep know who they are being led by. They know the voice of who they are being led by. And so the question that I have of multiple CY that I ask you every week, Who is your shepherd? Is it Jesus or is it the world? Who are you allowing to lead you? As believers, we should be attracting people to Jesus, right? When somebody looks at our life, they should want to walk with Jesus. We should be adding flavor to somebody's walk with Jesus. We should be making it really fun to walk with Jesus. Here's the reality, y'all. Christians, see why. Y'all should be the most joyful people on the planet. Right? As a Christian, you should enjoy stuff a lot more than people who aren't Christians that enjoy it. Here's a simple reason why. You know the Creator. You know who's in heaven. You know the God of the universe. And you know the end of the story. Right? Pastor Nick, one of our young adult pastors, he taught on Wednesday night. He's incredible. He got this old, like, VHS TV in his office. And he started playing the old Star Wars. And he started with, like, New Hope. And it's incredible. And his son's named Wesley. He's like 2 years old, 3 years old. And he started watching Star Wars. And he got to see Darth Vader for the first time. Now, I know, because I've watched Star Wars my whole life, I know that Anakin turns into Darth Vader. I know that Darth Vader is Luke's father. I knew the end of the story. And it helps me enjoy Star Wars even more. Another funny example, I walked into the CY office, and Emma, my admin, was in there with one of her friends. Her name's Gracie. She also works here. And they were talking, and they had like book club last night. Emma loves to read. And they had book club, and Gracie was explaining to Emma the end of the book. The reason this was happening is because Emma didn't have time to read the end of the book because I give her 10,000 tasks every day to do. And she was reading the end of the book. Here's why. So that when she went to book club, she can enjoy book club more. She knew the end of the story. We'll see why. You guys know the end of the story. You know Jesus died on the cross. You know he's coming back on a white horse. You know he's going to win. You know the end of the story, and so you should enjoy life more. And here's the reality is when people look at you, they should go, this person doesn't have it all together, right? That's what the Beatitudes was. I don't have it all together. I don't got this. Good. Jesus is for you. People should look at you and go, this person doesn't have it all together. They're living in the same world as me. They know the world's wicked, and yet they're so joyful. I wonder why. And then you get that opportunity to tell people about Jesus. And so create a flavor, create a want for somebody to know Jesus. Lastly, salt creates thirst. When you go to the ocean, right, and you drink a lot of salt water, my wife and I, holy cow, we're in Florida the other week, and naturally, I just was swimming in the ocean. I drank a lot of salt water, and I was so thirsty when I went back home. When you drink a lot of salt, you become really, really thirsty. Well, again, as believers, as Christians, we should be creating a thirst for Jesus for other people. We should be showing people who Jesus is. And the question, again, of many I have for you guys is based on the life you live, based on the person you are, would people want to follow Jesus? Based on the way you treat people and talk to people, would somebody want to follow Jesus? Because here's the reality, y'all, is people know you're a Christian. People know you love Jesus, right? They know you come to CY. You see that you have a cross necklace. You have anything that talks about Jesus at all. They know you love Jesus. They know you talk about Jesus, and so guess what? They're watching. And people will be watching for two reasons, either to tear you down or to watch and learn from you and start chasing after Jesus with you. And see, I have a question is, would you be an ambassador for Christ or the world? I had opportunities when I was playing college football to get to like wear different brands for people, and I was their ambassador. They would send it to me for like a 20% discount, and they're like, all we want you to do is just wear it and post about it. That's all they wanted me to do. They called me an ambassador. Well, see why. Are you an ambassador for Christ or for the world? Are you living for Jesus? Do people know you want to follow Jesus? Are you giving Jesus a good name? Or are you giving the world a better name? Are you influencing people to follow after Jesus or follow after the world? And again, salt is not meant to stay in the shaker. Look back at verse 13 with me. But if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You know the most useless place that salt is? In a salt shaker. In your cupboard, in your wall. It's doing nothing. It has no purpose. Salt in a salt shaker is pointless. Salt on meat protects it from decay. Salt on food adds flavor. Salt in liquid creates thirst. You lose your saltiness. The best way to lose saltiness, salt does not do its job while it's inside the shaker. It does its job when it is outside the shaker. And for you guys, the way you guys lose your salt is by just coming to CY, sitting in these chairs, maybe tuning out what we're saying, and then going home and doing nothing with it. Giving you application, giving you things to do, and then just going out and doing nothing with it. The way that would apply to this sermon, I'm going to give you guys 2 calls to action. Action number 1, serve at VBS this weekend. Action number 2 is tell somebody about Jesus this week. The way you would keep your salt in the salt shaker is to stand up, go home, and live your life the way you normally do. Like this had nothing to do, this had no impact. And so when you guys have an opportunity to serve at this church, to do something that is fun and joyful, I want you to take it. So when we give you guys an opportunity to start serving, when I give you guys an opportunity to tell people about Jesus, take it. Because there's a reality, see why the best way to lose your flavor is to stay in the salt shaker for too long. To sit in the same chairs, to hear the same stories, to say the same prayers and sing the same songs and never let it affect you. And never do anything with it. So see why I don't stay in the salt shaker. Go out and save the world from decay. Go out and give people a reason to want to follow Jesus. The second attribute of a disciple is this: brighten the world. Look at verse 14. It's just the first part of it. You are the light of the world. That's what Jesus says. You are the light of the world. I was reading this commentary, and in this commentary there was a story about this lighthouse keeper. If you guys don't know what lighthouse keepers are, because we're in New Mexico and we don't have any water here, a lighthouse keeper is essentially a person that stays in those really, really tall houses where the lights just go in a circle like this. And their job is to keep that light lit, right? They cannot let that light go out at all, no circumstances. And there was this older guy who'd been doing it for 50-some years. He'd been doing it his whole life. And he's training up a younger guy to start living in the lighthouse and to start keeping the lights. And he's training him, and the younger guy asked him, he goes, I just have a question. What would happen if you forgot to change the light one night? One night. You do this 365 days a year. What would happen if just one night you accidentally let the light go out? And the guy tells him, he goes, that would be horrible. That would be catastrophic. He goes, God forbid that ever happens. He says the reason that is because there are thousands of boats that are going back and forth, crossing by each other, that the only way they can see the other boat is because of this giant lighthouse. The only way they can see land is because of this giant lighthouse, because this lighthouse keeper keeps the light there. And I wonder, see why. This man has such a passion to keep his light burning, and it's a lighthouse. I wonder what our life would be if we treat this like our relationship with Jesus. If we treat our relationship with Jesus never allowing our light to go out. If our light is used right, see why, it can lead people to Jesus. But if used wrong or not used at all, it could lead people away from Jesus. And so light your lamp. There's, again, 3 kind of steps that would happen in biblical times with lamps. The first thing you would do is literally light a lamp. Once you start to follow Jesus, that's what happens. Once you raise your hand and say, I profess Jesus is my Lord and Savior, I confess with my mouth, I believe in my heart, I know Jesus is Lord, boom, you have a light. You are a light. You have a fire in you. Here's the reality, see why, is in order to run a race, you first have to join the race. You can't run a race on a couch. You can't run a marathon while sitting on your couch. You might be able to watch it on TV, but you can't run a marathon sitting at home. Same way you can't serve Jesus without first giving him your life. And so you must accept Jesus. You must follow after Jesus in order for your light to shine brightly. And that, in reality, that's the easiest step you can do. Giving your life to Jesus is the easiest thing you can do in your Christian walk. And it's the best thing, and it's the most important thing you can do. If you guys haven't done that yet, if you're not sure if you've done that yet, I gave you guys an opportunity to do that last week. A bunch of you guys raised your hands, said, I love Jesus. If you haven't done that yet, come talk to me. Talk to one of your leaders. We'd love to lead you in that. Secondly is you set your light, your lamp, where it can give light. Right? You put it where it can give light. Putting a light in a room where nobody's home. It's I want y'all to picture this, right? You left your room, and you just leave a lamp on. You close your door. The lamp is doing nothing. There's literally no purpose for the lamp to be in there. And my dad used to tell me my whole life, I'm sure your parents do this too, where you guys leave a house and you come home and you found out like your light was on and your parents are all mad that you didn't turn your light off. Well, I didn't understand it when I was younger. I didn't understand why my dad wanted me to turn my light off every night. I just didn't get it. And then I started paying for my own electric bill. And I went, holy cow, that's what happens when I leave my light on every night? So y'all, do your parents a favor, turn your lights off. But I left my light on and it was doing nothing. It wasn't lighting up a room for anybody because there was nobody in that room. A lamp does nothing if it's in a room with nothing in it. The same way as a Christian. If you come to church, you leave, you do nothing with it. It goes in through one ear, out through the other. It's pointless. It's pointless. Matthew 28, right before Jesus ascends into heaven, this is after he dies on the cross, rises again, talks to the disciples, talks to a bunch of people. After this happens, Jesus gives a call to the disciples. It's called the Great Commission. Jesus says in Matthew 28, he says, go out and make disciples among the nations. Summarized, go out, tell people about Jesus. Go out, lead people to Jesus. That is exactly what it means. One of my favorite pastors says this, the best way to deepen your relationship with Jesus is to get serious about the Great Commission. And I wonder, see why. I know how many people you guys meet a day. Might not know the exact number, but I know you guys probably see new people every single day. I wonder if you shared Jesus with those people, how different our world would be. How much better our school systems would be. How much kinder people would be. How many friendships would be successful. I wonder how great our world would be and how many more people would be in heaven if you simply decided to tell every person you met about Jesus. And so see why? Be bold about your faith. If you want to deepen your relationship with Jesus, be serious about the Great Commission. Why does that work? Because when you want to tell somebody about Jesus, you need to know about Jesus. Right? I tell you guys this all the time. You cannot reply, it is written to something that you don't know what is written, that you have not read what has been written. And so telling people about Jesus gives you an opportunity to know more about Jesus and gives you more opportunity to share your faith. So share your faith with everybody you meet. Have a passion about it. Have a joy about sharing your faith with everybody you meet. And I've shared this before, and I'm going to share it again. Imagine telling the Apostle Paul, the guy who got stoned till he was almost dead, and then he got up and he finished his sermon that he was preaching. The guy who was in jail for pretty much the entire life of him serving Jesus. The guy who was mocked and beaten and killed for his faith for Jesus and for preaching the gospel. Imagine if Paul the Apostle comes over here and he goes, hey, why don't you guys share your faith? And he asks, he's like, is it because they're going to stone you to death? You're like, well, no. Is it because they're going to hang you on a cross and they're going to put you in jail? Well, not really. Then why? Paul's asking, why don't you share your faith? It's awkward. It's weird. I'm scared people are going to think that I'm weird. I'm scared my friends might not want to be friends with me. I'm scared people might not like me. Well, y'all, in the reality, in the eternal universe, the eternity of heaven and hell, someone's salvation is worth more than them liking you or thinking you're weird. And I'm pretty okay, and I hope you guys are too, with people thinking that I'm weird but me not being ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So tell people about Jesus. Lastly, with your lamp, you need to fill it with oil or feed it with oil. What this does, essentially, they didn't have light bulbs, right? Like all of these light bulbs we have. They didn't have that back then. They had little candles and they had lamps, and so they have to feed it with oil for it to get stronger and to stay lit. If you want to be kingdom-minded. And again, what is being kingdom-minded? What being kingdom-minded means, again, is you are about your Father's business. You are about Jesus' business. You want people to know about Jesus. You want to talk about the Bible. You want to learn more and more and more about Jesus. If you want to be kingdom-minded, you need to do kingdom work. What kingdom work looks like is serving. Here's the reality, y'all. In my life, once I started serving in a youth group, my relationship with Jesus changed so quickly. I went to the youth group for the wrong reasons, honestly. But I left that youth group with a fire for Jesus that I never knew was possible. When I started leading a Bible study at UNM for the football players that I played with, I learned so much about Jesus because I had to. I had to read the Bible if I was going to tell these guys about Jesus. And I found a love for Jesus. So see why you want Jesus to be real to you? I know a lot of y'all have heard every story in the Bible. You guys could probably tell more good Bible stories than some pastors in the world today. I understand that. I know that. You want it to be real. You want Jesus to be real in your life. Start serving, start telling people about Jesus. It's going to be real to you really, really quickly because you're going to have to learn about Jesus. Once you start serving, you take your relationship with Jesus away from what he can do for you, and it turns into what you can do for him. Because here's the reality, y'all. He already did everything for you. He died on the cross. He paid for your sin. That was his job. Now what can we do for him? Now how can we serve him? How can we serve his youth? How can we serve the people in his life? Again, we're going to give you guys an opportunity. Outside at the welcome table, Emma's going to have a bunch of cards. I want all of those cards gone because you guys are taking them to your parents and asking, please let me serve at VBS. Lastly, Jesus calls his disciples to shine bright. That's our third and final point for tonight. Let's look at the second half of verse 14 through verse 16. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Tim Tebow is one of my favorite humans, in the world. He's awesome. I look up to him. He's a great dude. Right? If you guys don't know who he is, he was a great football player. He played in college, played for a year or two in the NFL. Right now, he fights for children's rights and all of that, and it's incredible. Well, when he was in college, Tim Tebow grew up a believer, grew up with a great life, loved Jesus his whole life. When he was in college, he thought, I'm going to write a Bible verse on my eye black, right? Eye black is just literally black stuff that you put under your eyes to get the sun out of your eyes when you're playing a sport. He wrote John 3:16 on his eyes. Now, John 3:16 is probably the most well-known Bible verse in the world. Before Tim Tebow, it wasn't. Tim Tebow wore it for one game. After that one game, Google reported that 94 million people searched, what does John 3:16 mean? And again, the verse of John 3:16 is, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. Well, the whoever in that story, the 94 million people Googled that Bible verse because Tim Tebow wasn't ashamed of his faith, because he wanted his light to shine brightly. And see why? None of us might ever be put in a position where 94 people can see us. But guess what? One person can see you. And to God, that's more than enough. That is so powerful, because when Jesus was on the cross, he was thinking of you specifically. And he died for you specifically. And so if you can shine your light bright to lead one person to Christ, that is such a great honor. Again, the verse says, be hidden. Jesus says a city on a hill cannot be hidden. See why? I've said this before. You are being watched. People see you. People are looking at you. You are an ambassador for Christ. Here's the reality. You're ambassadors for Christ whether you know it or not, and whether you're a good ambassador or not. When you proclaim, I love Jesus and I know Jesus, you're an ambassador for him. So I wonder what people are seeing, because you are a reflection of Jesus. And see why? How do people know you love Jesus? Is it from what you post on social media, or is it from the life that you live? Because here's the reality. It's easy to reflect Jesus on social media. I can repost as much Bible verses and cross pictures as I want. That's really easy to do. It's really hard to live a life that reflects Jesus and that honors Jesus. And I wonder if that's what we're doing. Look at verse 15, the second half of it. And it gives light to all in the house. That's what this lamp does. It gives light to all in the house. See why? I know there's some of y'all that are the first believers in your family, the first believers in your school, the first believers on your teams or in your friend groups. Number one is, if there are unbelievers around you that you're just forced to be around, do not let that discourage you, but let that encourage you. Because your mission field doesn't have to be another country. Your mission field can be your family. Your mission field can be your school. Your mission field can be your friends. Doesn't matter where you are. Doesn't matter where your light is, your light can shine brightly. Show off your faith. Look at the beginning of verse 14. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand. Jesus then said earlier, a city on a hill cannot be hidden. Your light is meant to shine. It is built to shine. It is designed to shine. You should be the number one advocate for Jesus. Everybody around you should know that you love Jesus. One of my favorite things in the lifting community is CrossFitters. If you guys do CrossFit, no offense at all. Or if your parents do CrossFit, no offense. But the way you know somebody is a CrossFitter is because they tell you they're a CrossFitter, right? I did CrossFit for a little bit when I first started working here, and it's fun. My shoulders don't work, whatever. And we had a joke around some of the pastors that they didn't know I did CrossFit because I talked so much about doing CrossFit, because people love CrossFit and they want everybody else to do CrossFit with them. Are you an advocate for Jesus that same way? Does every time somebody sees you walking over to them think, oh gosh, here comes Caleb. He's going to tell me about Jesus again. He's going to pray for me. He's going to ask me if I'm reading my Bible. Here's the reality, y'all. Be annoying about Jesus. Tell as many people as you know about Jesus. People should know, and you walk up to them and they're, okay, this person's going to tell me about Jesus again. And here's the reality, y'all. If you keep bugging and asking somebody to come to church, telling somebody about Jesus, asking to pray for them, eventually they're going to give in and ask why. Or eventually they're going to walk into service and they're going to find Jesus because they finally gave him a chance. Why? Because you were the biggest advocate for Jesus. Do the people around you know you love Jesus because of what you post on social media or because of how you act and how you talk about Jesus? Your light is meant to be seen. Now, I have a fun little lighter here, right? And when you take a lighter, I'm just going to give y'all, boom. You guys might not be able to see that. If I put this lid on it and I press the button, nothing happens. The lid opens, but nothing really happens. It just is a dim light. And here's the reality of this, CY. When you leave here and you don't share your faith with anybody, your light doesn't do anything. It stays just like this. When you go out and you choose not to serve and you choose not to invest in everybody else's relationship with Jesus, nothing. It doesn't do anything. When you surround yourself with the wrong people, nothing. There is nothing that this lighter can do. Your fire doesn't do anything. However, when you start serving, when you start telling people about Jesus, when you surround yourself with godly people, your light will go from this to this. Oh no. You're welcome. Tell your friends that happened. Okay. That is what happens when you start telling people about Jesus. The fire that you have in your heart turns into that. And it goes from this tiny little flame to this giant cloud of fire. Why? Because you started following after Jesus. You started chasing after Jesus. And the band can come back up. Let's lock back in. Let's look at verse 16. I know that was crazy. It was intended to be. Look at verse 16. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Don't be timid about Jesus, CY. Don't be afraid of what people think. And I read this was in a commentary I saw. If you are not warming the world is chilling you. CY, you guys have two options. Change the world and lead the world to Jesus, or allow the world to change you and lead you away from Jesus. It's a hard thing to do. I know. I was in your guys' age group. Social media was barely a thing. I know how much you guys are going through. I read the prayers every week. I pray over every single one of those prayers every week. I see how much y'all are going through. I know the struggles that y'all face. I know what the world is doing to y'all. I know how the world is hurting you. You guys can change the world. Once you start pursuing Jesus, once you raise your hand, you say, I'm all in for Jesus, go out and change the world. Because here's the reality, the thing you're struggling with, somebody sitting next to you is struggling with that exact same thing. Somebody in the little Calvary kids, one of those up to 5th graders, they're struggling with the exact same thing. So start telling people about Jesus. And then lastly, I asked this question, see why, and this is a life question I have for myself. After you give your life to Jesus, is it your story or his? What are you living for? Are you living for your story? To be glorified for your story, to look back and have everybody tell you how awesome you are and how incredible you are? Or are you living for Jesus' story? A commentary I read said this: God's people are chosen not for their own comforts, but to show the world the beauty of the Christian life and raise them to the same level. See why I truly believe the majority of y'all, if not all of you guys in here, really do love Jesus. You guys are really in love with Jesus. I love being able to watch y'all worship and just walk around, and you guys are in love with Jesus. If you guys are new here and you don't really know why we are on our hands and knees and we got our hands in the air and we're jumping up and down to some songs, in reality, it's because we're thanking Jesus for what he did for our lives. We are praising him because that's what the Bible calls us to do. Why do we raise our hands? Because the Bible tells us to raise your hands to Jesus. Another thing is when you do this, that means I surrender. You are surrendering everything to Jesus. When you are on your hands and knees, it means you are worshiping Jesus. And so for you guys that haven't really ever worshiped like that, haven't tried worshiping like that, I encourage you to try worshiping like that. I'm not saying you have to raise your hands. That's the only way you can worship. You have to be on your knees. That's the only way you can worship. Worship from your heart. Have a true heart posture of worship. And so see why, like I said at the beginning, I have a challenge for you all. We have an event here, and this isn't because I work at the church that I want you guys to serve at VBS. I want you guys to serve at VBS because what serving can do for your relationship with Jesus. And when you go over there and you start serving and you lead these kids in a prayer and you lead them to Jesus, it is incredible. Our executive pastor, Pastor Neil Ortiz, stood at this exact place with this exact pulpit and he talked to our staff yesterday. And he said that when he hears, every week I go and talk to him and I tell him what happened in middle school. Well, I told him last week that 10 kids gave their lives to Christ, and he literally was jumping up and down. He was so excited. Because the work that he's doing in that building over there means life change is being created in here. And so see why when you serve, when you give everything to Jesus, your time to Jesus, it won't be wasted. Jesus is going to love when you do that. And then secondly, start telling people about Jesus. You want to do that in a serving time? Serve at VBS. You can tell these kids about Jesus. That's going to be one of your jobs. But I challenge you, CY. I've already challenged you guys to take one of those cards, bring it to your parents, and ask them to serve. Second challenge I have for you guys, share your faith with one person this week. One person that's not a believer. It can be one of your family members that isn't a believer. If it's a person on, like a random person that you ever met, have your parents with you. But share your faith with one person this week. And then come tell me what happened next week. Because I'm curious, see why. I'm curious if we go up and ask people, hey, do you know Jesus? Hey, can I pray for you? Hey, can I tell you about Jesus? That's all you got to do. You want to share your faith with somebody? Walk up and say, hey, can I just tell you about Jesus real quick? Can I pray for you? That's it. That's all you got to do. And then they'll ask you, yeah, why did you want to pray for me? That was weird. Hey, honestly, because I just really love Jesus and I want you to know him. I want you to be in heaven. I want you to have this great joy that surpasses understanding. Hey, would you please come with me to CY next weekend? I can get your parents' phone number and we can drive and pick you up. I would love for you to hear about Jesus. And so CY, my challenge to you is two things. After service, we're going to go into a time of worship. You guys know we do that. After service, go over, talk to Miss Emma. She's going to be at the welcome table. Grab a card from her and go talk to your parents about serving. Secondly, tell one person about Jesus and just watch, CY. Watches how real your faith becomes. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for your love, Jesus. Lord, we thank you for the joy that we get from serving. We thank you for the joy that we get from pursuing you, Lord. Father, I pray that you would raise up great servants here tonight, Lord. Lord, that the need that we have, Lord, your word says that the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Lord, I pray that there would be some mighty workers in this room tonight, God, that would go out and lead others to you, Jesus. Lord, we are so thankful for every single one in here, Lord. Remind them how loved they are and be with them, Lord. And Jesus, we give this all to you. It is in your precious and holy name we pray. Amen. Let's stand. Let's come forward to worship. Let's respond.